in today's session, we are going to choose our own adventure. We're going to learn about leveraging your own content, whether that's Google Slides, PowerPoint, PDF, existing notebook files, leveraging that with Lumio to engage your students. So before we get started, I'd love to have you all join my lesson as a guest student. And actually, I'll go ahead and open up another browser window here. Let's go ahead and do a little window. So you'll go to hellosmart.com. And I'll split my screen, so hopefully that you guys can see everything really well. When you get to hellosmart.com, some of you have maybe gone through this before. Join as a guest for today. And my class ID is 887119. And I will go ahead and join as Otto this morning. That's my son. He's 5, in kindergarten, and he's just a wealth of energy and light in my life. So Otto's going to join us this morning as a guest student. For anyone who would prefer to simply watch the teacher and student experience on my screen, you are welcome to do that. But if you're comfortable having my teacher side visible, my shared screen, I should say, visible on your computer as well as your own window, you could even maybe join the student side from your smartphone. What's really wonderful about Lumio is that it does allow for any device with a browser and an internet connection to connect as a student, and you as the teacher can run your Lumio lessons from any device. So great, we've got 21 students connected. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat in case anyone joins us later. I'll pop this into the chat real quick. Oh, if I can get my chat to open. And thank you, Patrick is recording. And hi, Debbie. Good morning.
Hi, Heather. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. Hellosmart.com. Join as a guest. And then it's 887119 for anybody who pops in later and wants to join us. But I'm going to go ahead. Ooh, we've got 24 folks now, so thank you very much. My teacher side is on my left, and my student side is on the right. And you'll sort of know easily which is teacher side versus student side on this particular page, because on this page, the teacher has a number of tools readily available for them to annotate over the page or erase or even type some text. Meanwhile, the student, because this page is just an informational page for my students, they do have the ability to leverage that immersive reader if they need help reading the text on the page. This immersive reader has a whole lot of language options in it, which is even better. There's a translation option here. So tons of really great things in here, but the system will read to the student and give them those visual cues to help our early learners or to help our language learners in the classroom. So that's kind of how you can quickly see which is teacher side, which is student side on a page that's really pure information. And right now I do have you in teacher paced, excuse me. So I'm going to introduce this lesson, and then I'm going to put you in student paced for a little bit. We'll spend a few minutes as my guest students playing around in the lesson, and then we'll talk about building this kind of lesson. So for today's adventure, in the theme of adventures and choosing your own adventure, I went ahead and pulled in some content, some PowerPoint content about the 7 wonders of the modern world. And, in my classroom, my students and I might be discussing this from a history standpoint. We might be discussing this from a cultural awareness standpoint. We might just be discussing this from a scientific or even a physics standpoint. Like, how do they get that statue so big? I'm going to go ahead now and turn this over to student paste. So what you'll notice on the student side, you can now go to any page in this lesson, and I invite you as my students. Oops, I forgot to do my shout it out. Excuse me. Let's do that first. Let's go ahead and pull everybody back to teacher pace. So what do you know about the 7 modern wonders of the world? This is my shout it out to activate prior knowledge. I completely forgot I had this in here, so glad I caught myself. Sometimes, it's a little early in the morning or we don't get enough sleep and we forget what's there, but hooray for remembering. Okay. Now, before I zoom in and see what's going on with our responses, what do you know about the 7 modern wonders of the world? I'll go ahead and click on this gear symbol to turn off those display names, so my students can respond to this shout it out anonymously and comfortably. Ooh, someone has seen the Taj Mahal. That's amazing. If anyone else has knowledge or thoughts about the 7 modern wonders. Ooh, there's a Great Pyramid of Giza. The Great Wall of China is the oldest human-made structure visible from space. That is true and awesome. So thank you for sharing that. So we've got some info about the Great Wall of China. We've got Taj Mahal. We've got around the world, historical value. Maybe I'll put those here and I can categorize these. Great Pyramid. Excuse me. So I could have my students sharing their thoughts. This can create some great discussion, or it just gives me a chance to level set and understand what my students already know and what we're going to work on moving forward. Oh, another Great Wall of China one. Actually, that's listing Great Wall of China, Pyramid of Giza. So that's kind of listing a bunch. I hear about them all the time, but I honestly would fail a trivia question. Yes, same here. Same here. I am not good with trivia, so random facts are not my jam. None are in America. That's true. All right. Well, this has been fun. Thank you all for playing along with my shout it out. Now we've warmed up our brains. We've activated that prior knowledge. And now I'm going to turn it over to student paste. I'm going to go back to splitting my screen so that you can see what it looks like. Ooh, let's get this window. There we go. My tabs are in the way. So now that we're in student paste, you should be able to go to any page in the lesson. I'm going to pop back up to the 7 modern wonders of the world title page, but I'm maybe going to give you all maybe I'm giving my students 15, 20 minutes to study the 7 modern wonders of the world, to click through these pages of information at their own pace and decide which one interests them the most, or which one is the most exciting, which one would they want to visit, which one, what kind of information can they glean from these details here. I could have also inserted a YouTube video about the 7 modern wonders of the world for my students to watch. And keep in mind that this can all be happening virtually like we are today, or this could be happening in my classroom with my students on their one-to-one devices. So I've got that flexibility to run this lesson live in person, live virtually, and I could even share this lesson out to my students through the student share link through our learning management system, or through a Google Drive link, or an email, however I see best for my students, and they'll be able to get into this content outside of class time as well. So you're all getting a chance now to click around. Some of you may have come across the game already. So I am going to go ahead and push us forward because I do want us to have time to play in the build experience. But just wanted to give you that taste of the student paste option. I'm going to switch us back to teacher paste and notice how automatically my students are pulled in to the page that I'm on. Now, as the teacher, you'll see I have 2 options with this game. I can model the activity. So this is just a quick memory recall activity. We can use games to activate prior knowledge, to practice uh, concepts, to recall basic information, to just have some fun in the classroom and keep my students engaged with this new mode of learning. And so I can model this game for my students. Let's see, Petra. I think the fact is that its name comes from Petros, which means rocks. And meanwhile, also on the teacher side, I have the ability to look at student progress. So I see that 15 of you have not started this activity. Oh, 14 of you have not started. See how the numbers are changing on my screen? So I get this awesome dashboard now with our games, with the Match 'em Up game and a couple of others, to see my class overview. So 19 of you are in progress. Three of you have completed the game. And I can also show the results of those completed activities. So the 3 of you that have finished this game already, your most frequently wrong questions were about the Taj Mahal, the Machu Picchu, and Chichen Itza. Forgive me if I'm saying those names incorrectly. I can also flip over to see the most commonly correct ones. So I see we know a lot about the Great Wall of China, the Roman Colosseum, Christ the Redeemer. I think you guys are pretty comfortable and confident with that stuff. There is one more tab here, and I'm going to tap on it, but I maybe won't dig into the details because I don't want anyone to feel embarrassed. But this gives me student by student progress in the game. So I can see that, and you can actually kind of notice if you're looking at my screen at the moment, these colored bars underneath this blur overlay are moving. So blue means in progress, green means complete, orange means you haven't started. Maybe that's auto, or maybe you went inactive, so auto hasn't done the game yet. But I want you to notice that this sort of blurred out overlay reminds you, the teacher, that this is individualized student data about the game. And we might not want to share that with the whole class. We want to make sure that when we look at this particular page, we're not sharing our teacher screen for the whole class on a big interactive whiteboard or interactive flat panel or other projected surface in the classroom, right? Because unless we know that our students are comfortable and confident, and we really want to feature what students are doing, we want to be mindful of their privacy and not make sure that we think about sharing this information that could be sensitive for our students to see. Okay, so 17 of you have completed the activity. Again, I feel like we can kind of keep moving here. Now we're moving on to the part of the lesson where I actually imported a PDF. So just for reference, the top few pages were from a PowerPoint. These next few pages are from a PDF. So if we were going to tour a modern wonder, this is a project for you guys. So hooray, we've been awarded some money. We get to go on a vacation to one of the 7 modern wonders of the world. So we have some work to do here. We're going to figure out where we want to visit. We're going to use a chart to estimate our expenses. Then we're going to ultimately kind of reflect on that whole journey and the expense. So maybe this is part of a finance class, right? A personal finance class. So we can have a lot of fun with this topic. Now, the next page was from was from the PDF. What I'm realizing is I forgot to put in an activity to help us pick where we want to go. So great news, Lumio allows me to throw certain activities in on the fly. So I'm going to click this plus button here, and I'm going to do a quick whole class whiteboard. Okay. So on the fly, I'm adding a blank whole class whiteboard. And before I let everybody edit, I'm going to pause. Everyone can edit up here in the top right. And I'm going to put up in the top, where do you, make sure I do you want to go? I do this because I want to emphasize that this can all be happening on the fly. Actually, I'm going to make that blue. I like blue better. Now, I can make this as big as I want, and I can even notice that I am the one that added it. So if I forget who put what, I can check out that attribution, or if I want to know who put what. So now I'm going to turn it over to you, my students, and I'm going to split my screen again so we can see how this works on the student side and the teacher side for anybody who's watching my screen only. Where do you want to go? My students are going to click start or resume button. And I think Otto would like to go to the Taj Mahal. So I'm going to put Otto's answer here. So he's putting in Taj Mahal. Maybe he wants to make his answer really big. That's lovely. On the teacher side, oh, it looks like someone put in Hawaii. Well, now that's not exactly one of the 7 modern wonders of the world, but I appreciate the creativity and the interest. Maybe after class, I'm going to tap on all of these and find out who added what. I won't call out who put Hawaii in right now, but I can check the attribution either live in class while this is running, or of course outside of class time. I can come back to this page and check who added what, so I know who participated. But more importantly, this is going to help me create my groups for the next thing. So let's say, okay, we've got a bunch of people who want to visit the Great Wall of China. We've got a couple folks who want to visit the Taj Mahal. Maybe these are going to be my groups for the next part of this lesson, right? So, okay, Hawaii, you're a little bit of an outlier. Any wonders in a warm, sunny place, we'll put you in a little outlier there for a moment. Pyramids, Colosseum. So notice I can move these around just like in a shout it out. But what's extra fun about these whole class whiteboard pages is that you're not limited to plain text that comes up as a little post-it note, right? You all, as my students, have these great tools of drawing, adding images or shapes or lines, typing in your own text, choosing your own color. Ooh, Christ the Redeemer, preferably during Carnival. Brilliant. I love that. So I hope you're all having fun with this. Now, in real life, we'd want to take a moment to look at who wants to go where, maybe create our groups based on these responses, so our students have voice and choice in their learning adventure, right? But for today, I'm just going to move us forward, and I'm going to do random groups to get this going quickly, because we have to be mindful of our time. So with 27 students in my class, I can choose up to 9 groups of 3. I might not want just 9 groups of 3. I might want to have bigger groups, so I can, of course, choose fewer groups. But this all comes down to how many students you have in your class and how many teams would you like to have. So we have these options. Let's go ahead and expand the teacher side so you can see it nice and clear. I get to pick how many teams I want, and then the system will randomly assign. So let's go ahead and go with, oh gosh, 27. Well, I think 9 is actually going to be the most equal number. So we've got 27. Notice how your names just flew across the screen. Ooh, it looks like we maybe missed somebody. So let's go ahead and back up and try this one more time. Now, I wanted to highlight this. I noticed somebody dropped off in my numbers, 26 down. It went down to 26 briefly. And so I kept an eye out. When I got those 9 groups, I didn't see 3 people in every group. So I went back in the lesson and forwards in the lesson. Keep your student side active. This is super important when it comes to assigning small groups. It's a little finicky, but we want to make sure all the students are in the lesson live when we assign these small groups so that they can participate in the activity. If you have a student who's out sick, they aren't going to be live in the lesson with us, and you'll need to maybe create a copy of this group workspace page for all the kids that were out sick. Maybe they just get to be in one group together. Maybe it's a whole class whiteboard page that you offer next for anybody who was sick. You know, there are ways to work around this current quirk in our system, and the developers are looking very closely and sincerely at how do we make sure that that we allow students who are out sick or not in class, or their device times out or something. How do we make sure they can still participate in these activities? So I did not move any students around. I let the system assign randomly, but if I had wanted to, I could have clicked and dragged your names to organize the groups the way that I saw fit, or the way that we decided was appropriate, given that, some folks want to go to the Great Wall of China and some folks want to go to Machu Picchu. Let's go back to splitting my screen here and showing you both the student and the teacher side at the same time. So on the teacher side, I have this dashboard where I can check on my student work. And then on the student side, you see your team at the top, and then you can start adding expenses. So you're in groups and you're going to estimate, what do you think this is going to cost to go on this trip together? How much are your flights going to cost? Well, Otto thinks that flights are going to cost $2,700 round trip to go to Machu Picchu. That's probably a bit high, but that's his estimate. He wants to make sure that he has enough money for himself and all of his friends that are coming on this trip with him. Okay, and then maybe he's going to say, well, I definitely want to eat local food. I want to pack some snacks for the hike. So he's starting to plan this out, and his teammates on Team 7 hopefully will start working with him. I'm going to call you out, Jessica and Aubrey. If you wouldn't mind throwing some things in with Otto, that would be great, so we can see that interaction among the students. Students have this ability to kind of work together digitally, collaborate on these challenges that we give them, and they get to see each other's work. So while we're waiting for Jessica and Aubrey to be brave and add a little something, oh, there she goes. So so Jessica actually thinks it's only going to be $2,000. She thinks it's for the week. So now maybe Jessica and Otto are sitting together in the classroom, and they're going to have a little discussion about coming to a consensus on what those flight costs are going to be. Or maybe they're working virtually. Maybe I split you up into groups. The bell rung and you guys are working on this remotely as part of your homework over the course of the week, because it's a project, right? So they could also have a little chat here. Hey, Jess, I'm thinking we need to budget more. Tell me how you got to 2,000. Okay, so Otto can have a little chat with Jess in the project collaborative workspace itself, so that they can keep in touch even when they have to work virtually and separately or independently on this collaborative experience. And Jess might give him a quick response to this, or maybe maybe they're both working at different times in the week and she's going to respond in a couple days. Now, from the teacher side, let's go ahead and take a look at that. I'm going to pick on Team 8 because I see Debbie's in there. Make sure the chocolate is available and vegetarian meals. Yes, I love that somebody wants the chocolate. Absolutely, you need to have that. So I'm a big chocolate junkie. So Team 8 has gotten started on their work. And as the teacher, I'm digitally peeking over their shoulder. I don't have to physically walk around the room to see what they're doing. I can see it from here. I can even click on that person's work and find out who's contributing what to the project. Now, I'm not going to embarrass anybody from Team 8, so I'm going to go back to Team 7 to just prove this point. If I click on Otto's 2,700 round trip, I can see that Otto added that. So this gives me that attribution, just like in the whole class workspace, so that my students, so I can give them individual credit as well as team score if I need to. Okay. So hopefully you guys have had some fun with that group project. Now we have a student individual handout. Perhaps I also want to challenge you to work independently and think critically about the actual cost. So here's an individual handout. So we've worked as a whole class. We've also worked in small groups, and now we're working independently, all built on a PowerPoint and a PDF that were merged together into Lumio and simply enhanced with the interactive elements that Lumio brings to the table. So in this next portion of our adventure, you each get to work independently. Otto's going to fill in his actual cost, right? Maybe his actual cost was $150 each way per person. And notice on the teacher side that on the teacher side, I'm seeing the names pop up. As soon as you start that handout, as soon as you start working, your name pops up for me, and I can digitally peek over your shoulder. Here we go. I'm going to peek into Otto already. He's working. He's gotten started. I'm so glad. If I need to have a little chat with Otto, I can say, great start. Keep going, right? And maybe I'm going to color code. Maybe I tell my students, hey, today, guys, I am this, I'm going to always be the dark pink color. I'm going to be this pink color. So if you see pink show up in your handout or in your workspace, that's me, Mrs. Schrader. Everybody else use other colors when you're working collaboratively or independently, so that you know pink is always going to be me as your teacher. And maybe Otto is going to say, actually, I need help. Now, he could raise his hand in a physical classroom and I could go over and work with him. But maybe he's shy. Maybe he doesn't want to raise his hand physically. So he can pop that note in there, and then I can have a little chat with him privately right here in the handout, which I just think is phenomenal for our shy or less confident students out there. Can I look at this outside of class time? Absolutely. I can just open this lesson back up later, see that Otto's looking for help, and give him that guidance. Or maybe we schedule some time outside of class to work together. But this digital over the shoulder peek, as I like to call it, is such an amazing tool for us as teachers. Okay, so we've seen different ways to play, to ask our students questions, to engage as a whole class or engage as a small group or work independently. And now we are going to do a quick, let's just say we've done this whole project. I want to do one more whole class whiteboard where you give me, 3 facts, 2 questions, 1 big idea. Let's actually pull ourselves out of our planning, our trip planning, and legitimately, what is something that you've learned so far about choosing your own adventure in Lumio? What questions do you have? And I guarantee you, all of you are probably thinking, well, my question, Heather, is how do we build a lesson like this? And we will do that next. But if anybody has any facts, questions, or big ideas, oh, yeah, how are you able to sign in as a teacher and a student? Great question. So we're going to show you how to build a lesson here in just a minute, but I'll go ahead and answer this question right here, right now. So in order to go into my teacher side, we've got a couple of people on top of each other here. We need to carefully build the lessons to use our database resources. Yep. You'll want to make sure that you're using your resources for sure, but you can enhance those resources in a variety of ways with Lumio. You can move back and forth between teacher and yes. No other platform that I know of allows you to move back and forth throughout the lesson between teacher pace and student pace. So I think that's super cool. Okay. Getting to this quick question, how did I have my teacher side and my student side open at the same time? So a couple of things here. The teacher side, we go in through our school issued Google Drive. So I go into my Google Drive, I click new, more, Lumio, or I've already got my Lumio lesson in there. I've signed into my Google Drive and I just double tap on that Lumio lesson. So that's going to be in one browser. And then in order to open up a student side as a sample, I opened up another browser as an incognito browser page, or I simply chose another browser altogether. So notice that my teacher side is in Chrome, but my student side is actually in a private window from Edge. So I actually have two teacher accounts. I've got a Microsoft account and a Google account. I'm working on my teacher account that's Google based for today, because I know that's where you guys have your Lumio stuff living for the most part. So I opened up my teacher side in my school issued Google Drive environment through Google Chrome. And then to pull open that sample student side, I pulled open an in private Microsoft Edge browser page. I could have opened up a Google Chrome incognito page, or I could have just opened up a Mozilla Firefox page, for example, right? So we can just open up a whole nother browser and either sign in with fake student credentials or join as a guest for that student experience. So hopefully that answers your question. Someone has a question about shout it out. I try to shout it out with my students and I click start, but theirs kept saying waiting for teacher. Okay, great question. Great question. I wonder if there is an internet connectivity issue going on when that happened to you. But what I would say is, if at any point your student devices are not reflecting the activity or the page that you have chosen, first and foremost, check what pacing you're on. Are you on student pace or are you on teacher pace? If you're on teacher pace, that means the students are forced onto the same page you are. Then ask your students to refresh their browser screen. It's possible that the internet slowed down just enough when you clicked start that the students their devices didn't connect correctly, and that they just need a quick browser refresh. So in Chrome, it's this little circular button at the top left to reload my browser page. So ask your students to do that. The last thing that I can think of, and again, without having seen this happen directly, it's hard to diagnose what really went wrong there. But the other thing is it possible that your students went into the lesson using the student share link, which is supposed to be the asynchronous access, but you opened up the lesson live through, your regular environment? If your students are joining your lesson live, they need to go to hellosmart.com and put in your class ID to join your live lesson. If you've had them click on that asynchronous student share link that you posted in the learning management system or sent via email or however you shared it with them, that's the asynchronous link that doesn't allow Shout It Out to work, because Shout It Out is meant to be a live class experience activity. And the asynchronous link assumes those students don't have access to you as their teacher live right now. So that could maybe be what happened. If they were clicking on the student share link, but you were trying to run the lesson live, that could be a challenge to running a Shout It Out. Okay, let's get into how we build this stuff, because I think it seems like everyone's paused on their questions. So thank you for your questions and your comments here. Great job, everyone, for playing along as my guest students. So on your guest student window side, I want you to get out of my lesson. So I'm going to demonstrate that here. On the student side, you have three little lines at the top left. You click on that, and if you came in as a guest, it'll say you are a guest, and you can click leave class. If you happen to sign in, that's okay. Not a problem. Teachers can sign into other teachers' lessons as students. Not a big deal. Just click leave class. Either way, click on these three lines and leave the class. So when you leave the class, you should see welcome students, and you'll see the listing of how many teachers' classes you've been in. At least you'll see mine, Mrs. Schrader's class, like Otto does here. All right, I see that most of you have gotten out of my class, so you're following directions beautifully. Thank you very much. Now, I want you to go ahead and close this browser page and open up a page with your Google Drive in it. You can either close this page altogether, or you can simply type over, drive.google.com. So go to your school issued Google Drive so that we can build together. there are two ways to get started through your Google Drive. And why are we starting in our Google Drive? Let me answer that possible question in your mind. By starting in our Google Drive, we're allowing our Lumio lessons to live in the Google environment or to be visible inside that Google environment so that you can organize your lessons however you see fit. So you can see I have my lessons organized by customer training files folder and then Anne Arundel County Public Schools folder. And I like my stuff to live in a very structured way in my Google Drive. And you might be the same. So there are two ways. Once you get into your Google Drive, you'll have the option to go to the waffle or on the next page, and you'll all have access to this lesson later so you can come back and reference it. You can go to the new folder button, the new button, click more, and then Lumio. My personal preference, I'm going to be just honest with you guys. The waffle is great. But in my experience, what the waffle will do is it'll just stick your Lumio file in a Lumio folder in your Google Drive. And then you've got to reorganize it where you want it to live. So I like to go to the folder in which I want that Lumio lesson to live. And then I click on New, More, Lumio. And then that next Lumio lesson that I choose to build is going to live in that folder I was already in. Okay, so if I'm in my AACPS folder and I go New, More, Lumio, the Lumio lesson I build right then and there is going to land in my AACPS folder in my Google Drive. So that's my personal preference. Now, whether you follow my personal preference or you follow the waffle method of clicking on the waffle icon, scrolling down and clicking the Lumio icon, if it's your first time coming in, you are going to be prompted to establish your teacher name. That's the name, like I have Mrs. Schrader as my teacher name. You're going to need to click a couple of other things to initiate your smart account. I'm guessing because you're all e-coaches here today, you've already done that step, but I wanted to make sure that I pointed it out because it will come up for some teachers who have not gone in before and maybe are trying this for the first time. Okay. So then we get to choose our own adventure. We can start with existing content by importing, or we can start with the new button and just any of these existing resources. And even if you realize, oh, I clicked on new and I thought I was going to build a game first, but now on second thought, I want to import a PDF, that import button is right there for you in the new page window. So you can, we pulled out import to make it quick and easy to bring your own content and start that adventure fast. But you can always click new and then import resource. Or you could start with a YouTube video. You could start building your lesson with a game, or you could start building your lesson with one of our ready-made activities, or even searching the Lumio library here with the resources. So you get to pick how you start this. And then I did want to highlight that we do have some Lumio resources in this lesson for you. And there's contact information here at the end. So let's go live and build a lesson together. I'm going to kick my students that are still in here out. I'm clicking on my people icon. I'm scrolling down and cancel. Click on that people icon at the top left, click edit, select all, and remove. So now whoever was left, whoever forgot to leave my class at the end of class time, they're out of my class. And now I'm going to end this lesson, and it's going to take me to my Lumio dashboard, or my Lumio library, I should call it. But I'll go ahead and close out and start from my drive. So hopefully, oh, I see a question in the chat. I'm so sorry. Has someone else been answering the chat questions in the Google?
Hi, Heather. I think Debbie and I have been chiming in. We both popped in at the same time and have been answering. So we're covering what we can.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great. And we have until 9:45, right? So we've got 15 minutes. So I'll try to walk through these build steps in 10 minutes or less, and then I'll take a few minutes to try to go back through those questions. Okay, from my Google Drive, remember we can start with the waffle icon, or we can start with the folder we want the lesson to live in, new, more, Lumio. So waffle icon, my preference is come to that folder I want my lesson to live in, click new, more, Lumio. So then it opens my Lumio library and I can, again, choose my adventure. Start with my existing content, start with a ready-made resource, start with adding a YouTube page, whatever I plan to do. It doesn't matter what order you bring these things in to your Lumio lesson, because you can, of course, rearrange the pages. For today's purposes, I'm going to click import because I want to start with a PowerPoint that I know is saved on my desktop. I might also start with Drive. Let's also highlight that because we're working through our Google Drive, we have the ability to import Google Slides and other Google file types into our lesson. I'm going to demo a PowerPoint and a PDF today, but the same process for Google Drive. You can even pull in existing Lumio lesson content from your library. So that's a fun new element that we added just a few months ago. So I click import and my computer, and under my desktop, I have this 7 Wonders of the Modern World PowerPoint lesson that I'm going to open up. It's going to import all the pages of that PowerPoint lesson, and then I'll get to choose if I want to bring them all in or just bring certain pages in. So maybe you've got this awesome Google Slides lesson, you want to bring in everything from that. But you typically print out a PDF handout, and that PDF handout happens to have 4 pages. It's got an intro page, a worksheet page, an answers page, and another informational page. You might not want your students to have that answers page, right? So traditionally, you'd print that and photocopy just the pages you need your students to have. And in the case of Lumio, we can simply not import that page of answers. For this particular example, bringing in this PowerPoint or Google Slides that has all this great information about the 7 wonders, I'm just going to add them all. I've got, by default, it selects all pages. All right. Now, once this is added, before I forget anything else, I'm going to mix in my PDF. So I'm going to go to my blue plus button, because I already know I want to bring in content from this resource, content from that resource, content from somewhere else maybe, and bring those all together into one cohesive lesson. So instead of 20 applications or 20 tabs open in my browser, I have one tab. It's my Lumio lesson. So I'm going to import again. This time, you see we're got all these different add options, but I'm going to grab from my computer one more time the PDF about the 7 modern wonders of the world. Open that up. And again, it gives me the option to pick which pages I want. Maybe I've decided we're not going to do the expense planning. That's a terrible idea. We need to plan for our expenses, right? We need a budget. So I'll add that back in. We'll go ahead and add that whole thing. Now, oops, I inserted this PDF by accident underneath the title page of that PowerPoint I inserted, rather than at the very bottom after we've reviewed all this content. Okay, so I have a couple options here. I can run with this, and I can actually make all these informational pages at the back end like an appendix for my students to reference, or I can just click and drag these pages around. So let's go ahead and click and drag our pages around, because I've decided I definitely want my students to have the chance to review this content. I think it makes sense to have the order. So just click and drag pages as we see fit. Okay, so we can mix and mash up and choose this adventure for our students. Now let's start adding some interactivity. We've brought in our existing content. We're going to add some interactivity. After the title page, I want to do that shout it out, where I found out what my students already know, right? I'm going to activate prior knowledge. Well, guess what? I don't have to build that from scratch. There are some activating prior knowledge shouted out activities. So I'm going to click on activating prior knowledge, and I'm going to see we've got some ready-made options, some individual handout, entrance and ticket sort of activities. a response activity where I ask my students, is this statement true or false? Um, or shout it out, KWLQ, and what do you want to know about the topic? So I might say, oh, yeah, I'm going to use this one. Instead of building my own shout it out from scratch, I'm just going to use this ready-made resource. Okay, now after, remember in my lesson, I had a game. So maybe I've created a list of quick facts that I want to run in a game for my students. So after the last page of information about these activities, I'm going to click on that blue plus button again. I'm going to add a game-based activity. And in this case, I'll do a match 'em up. Now, to save myself time, I pre-planned this match 'em up activity. So all I have to do is copy and paste from here. And I'm not going to put them all in because that's going to take some time, but I'll maybe put the first like 3 so that you see the process of building this game. Oops, I better give them categories. Wonder and fact. Okay, modern wonders and facts. So I'm just going to grab these first 3 real quick, copy and paste them in here. And my students can play this game as a review or just as a quick mind break, mental break there in the middle of, after reviewing all this great content about the 7 modern wonders of the world. I'm going to let the system check the answers instantly, but if I prefer, I could have my students match everything up and then click check my answers, which is the when prompted option. For today, I'm going to stick with instantly. And we do have some template backgrounds for our games, simple ones if we want to be mindful of our older students who might think these things are childish, or we simply want to minimize distraction. Maybe we have some students who are sensitive to bright colors or movement or whatever. But I can also customize match 'em up, which is really exciting. So I'll click custom and next. And now I can add my own imagery here. So I'm going to just do a background image. You could do images for the different buckets, the different categories. I'm going to go ahead and just do a background image. Click on that little mountain icon, click on it again. I can upload an image from my computer or do a Bing safe search. Modern wonders of the world. And I can pick any of these pictures that I want. And I think for the sake of today's speed, I'm just going to grab this beautiful mountainscape picture. That might be Machu Picchu. I'm not really sure, but it's beautiful. So I'll click OK and save it. And now I can even change the color of the text to white if I think that that's going to look a little better on the page. And now we will go ahead and finish. If I needed to reorganize how these flow, right, I can do some shifting of content, but I kind of like the original way. Where did that go? There we go. Wonders on one side, facts on the other, they match them up. So we'll click finish, and now we can preview the game to make sure that it's exactly the way that we want it to be. Okay. So we've imported some existing content, a PowerPoint and a PDF. We brought in a shout it out activity to activate prior knowledge. We brought in a game for quick review. And now maybe we need to think about how are we going to get our students engaged with this expense planning sheet. You may remember that I put this as a small group activity so my students could practice their collaboration and communication skills. So how do I do that? Well, from looking at this page, all I need to do is click that magic wand button in the top right and choose Group Workspace. Notice there's also a little speech bubble icon in the top right. On every single page, I can add up to 5 minutes of instructional audio. So my students have me helping them read the page, understand the instructions. Maybe I would just want to describe the picture to them in an art class, right? So we can add some instructional audio, which is wonderful. And then for this final expense sheet, I'm having each student do that individually. So I'll click that magic wand and choose individual handout. All right, it is 9:40. So I need to be mindful of my time, and hopefully you've seen how you can choose your own adventure with bringing in your existing content, those Google Slides, your PowerPoints, your PDFs. You could even bring in your old notebook files if you still have some of those hanging around, and then inserting engaging activities, turning those PDF pages or those PowerPoint pages into interactive pages for your students to participate and engage with the content from their one-to-one devices, whether you're live in class or they're working virtually. Once we've called our lesson done, let's just say I'm going to quickly add a question and reflection activity before we wrap it up. A 3, 2, 1 countdown is already in existence for my students. So I'll pop that in as the very last page. And I'm actually going to edit this activity because I want it to be a whole class 3, 2, 1. So I'll click edit. By default, that 3, 2, 1 was an individual one. But I'm going to click edit so that I can click my wand and convert it to a whole class activity. So I could have built that 3, 2, 1 from scratch using our beautiful page templates. That's what I did in my original lesson. I went to our painted jungle template and I grabbed the 3-column page here. But I could also just take the quick, easy route of using those existing ready-made resources. And when I'm done, I'll click finish editing and I can run that lesson with my students. So with all that said, let me go back over to our chat and see, are there any questions that did not get answered?
Actually, Heather, there was 2.
Great.
One was about the raising the hand feature. You said something about Otto could raise his hand. You think students can't raise hands in Lumio, can they?
Not yet. You're right.
Not yet. Okay.
I'm sorry if I misspoke about that. So
Okay.
what I meant to say was that Otto might physically raise his hand in a classroom, but that would call attention to the fact that he wants my help. And I could, of course, walk over to him and help him in person in the classroom. But if he wanted to sort of quietly call attention to the fact that he needs help, he can leverage the text tool to ask me for help in that particular activity. Now, coming hopefully very soon, it is on, since you all are e-coaches, I can trust you. I know that I've shared this with your leadership team already, but hopefully coming very soon, there will be a raise hand feature here. So when a student clicks the done button, you see a little green check mark pop up on this page. We're also hoping to very soon have that raise hand button where a little hand icon or some kind of indicator pops up so the teacher can see that Otto's asking for help, but he's trying to do it quietly and privately, maybe because he's too shy to raise his hand in front of everybody else, or maybe because I've asked my students to have 15 minutes of quiet independent work time and I don't want any interruptions or distractions, right? So great question. What was the other one?
Just about, can you only use it for interactive teaching or can you also assign independent work on Lumio? I know the answer, but I'll let you answer
it. Great question. Absolutely, you can assign independent work. So what you might do is, I'll go ahead and end this lesson again. You might create a lesson, 7 Modern Wonders of the World, and it might be nothing but individual handout activities and informational pages and maybe a couple of games, right? So maybe you didn't choose to put any collaborative activities in there. Then you could make a copy of that lesson by clicking on the little snowman icon here from your Smart Lumio library. Or actually, better yet, don't make a copy from in your Lumio library. Let's follow this path. From our Google Drive, if we want those different copies of the lesson to be visible and live in the Google Drive so we can organize it the way we want, go to New, More, Lumio, and this is going to sound like a little extra work, and it is, but it's worth it. Instead of just copying, because if you simply copy the lesson in the Lumio environment, it's not going to pop up on your Google Drive side. So you'll want to go New, More, Lumio, and then click New, but choose to import a resource from your existing Lumio library. So import resource, my Lumio library, then tap on that lesson you're looking to copy for, how you might need to do this 5 times so you can get 5 individual copies for each student. If that's what you're trying to do, you want to give each student their own version. Then you might, select a few pages that you're not going to include, and you're going to add some new pages for each to customize the lesson for each student. Click add and name it, Heather's lesson, Otto's lesson, et cetera, et cetera. So then you can customize each of those lessons, but you've started with that base file. And I'll go ahead and give this a second let me go ahead and put Heather's lesson. Right, so this is, wait for that save. Okay, maybe I'm going to do more to this, but what's most important is that back on my Google Drive side, let me refresh the Google Drive page. We have our 7 Modern Wonders of the World sample lesson that we made starting around 9:33. And then, where did Heather's lesson go? There it is, Heather's lesson, created at 9:46. So Heather's copy of the lesson is here in my Google Drive. So it's a little extra work to make sure that all those copies show up in your Google Drive, but I think it's worth it to have that organizational structure available to you on the Google Drive side. So new, more, Lumio, and then click the new or the import button to bring in from my library. And that way you can make each lesson for each student unique. When you're ready to share the lesson with those individual students, you're going to give them that student share link right here. Great question. Does that make sense? Okay. Hopefully that was helpful. I did post the, great, thank you. Thank you for saying it makes sense. I did post the teacher share link of my Choose Your Own Adventure lesson into that Google Drive environment that I was given for my presenter notes. It's a Google Doc, and inside the Google Doc, it has the link to the teacher share copy, so that if you liked anything you saw in my Choose Your Own Adventure lesson today, you can snag that from me and copy it into your own library and use it. And I also linked those Lumio lesson resources. So if I come back here and we go all the way down to our last page, Lumio resources, it's bit.ly/explore Lumio. There's a wealth of support tools here for you. We've got quick YouTube videos. We've got a Lumio ambassador community for you to join. You don't have to be an expert to join that team. We have Ready, Set, Smart webinars throughout the year. Some of them are getting started webinars for teachers that are just dipping their toes in the water, and some of them are a little more advanced, focused on specific topics like math manipulatives. And then of course there's our Learn Lumio guides as well. So lots of good resources here for you. If anyone has any last questions, don't hesitate to pop them in the chat right now. And yeah, you do not need to make PowerPoint first. You don't need to start. You could even build from scratch in Lumio, but today's purpose was to show you that you could take your existing resources like your Google Slides, like your PowerPoints, your PDFs, your notebook files. You can pull those on into Lumio, mix and match them in Lumio, and add interactivity so that you have one cohesive lesson for an awesome learning adventure with your students.
I think my question was about the I like to, they were saying that when you bring it in as a Google slide into Lumio, it's static, right? You can't move the things around.
Yeah, so, yeah. We are hoping to have that adjusted. But at this time, when you import PowerPoint or Google Slide content, the system will flatten those pages into a static image. So if your Google Drive content or your PowerPoint, if they have moving objects and things that are manipulatable for you and your students, let's be honest, don't bring that stuff into Lumio. Just leave it at Google Slides and then build your interactive stuff in Lumio and have those two tabs open. But if you have otherwise static content that you want to make interactive, Lumio is an excellent tool for that.
Yeah, I've been just bringing it into Smart Notebook and then bringing it into Lumio, and then it keeps the interactive feature that way. But I was just hoping there was a workaround to that. It just takes a little bit longer to do that. But yeah, I just like to be able to go into all the kids' slides quickly in Lumio rather than having the Google Slides.
That's a great workaround. It is a tedious workaround. I agree with you. And I have talked with teachers about that. I assure you that the dev team is looking at how can we import Google and PowerPoint and leave it interactive, leave those movable objects for teachers. I think it's, a bit of, we've got to get Microsoft and Google to collaborate with us and work with us on that. But we are looking at it. And in the meantime, if you really want to use the workaround of exporting it and putting it into Notebook before you import it into Lumio is a great workaround, great solution. Okay, thank you all so much. I'm sorry we're a minute over now, but I really appreciate your time and attention today. I hope you have fun in our Choose Your Own Adventure lesson, and I wish you the best for the rest of the school year. Thank you.
Thank you.